We're live?
Hello. Yes, we are.
Yeah, we are. 1 second.
We'll just give
We are live.
we'll just give a
Yeah.
couple of minutes for people to join in if
If anyone is
anyone
joining.
is joining. One day we will have a lot of people joining. We'd be getting messages from our fans and audience to say, please, can you do a live can you do a live reaction?
Yeah,
One day it will happen.
that's fine. It's a minute in. I think we can just start and then this will be uploaded anyway eventually on YouTube, so
Yeah, that's
people
there.
can always watch the video.
Cool.
Right.
Let's
So
go.
welcome to another live episode of Silly Point. We are reacting to England's thrashing of India, 3-1, as G predicted way back in our
I
preview.
predicted 3-0. I had a look at the old videos and I predicted 3-0. By the way, you predicted
Oh,
4-0.
no, Uzi predicted 4-0. I predicted 2-2.
Oh, you predicted 2-2. Fine, okay.
Okay. Why would you predict 3-0? Why would you predict a draw?
I have no idea. I don't know. I was high on something probably. But I think
But
I think I probably came closest to
yeah,
to it to be yeah, I
yeah.
was
Well,
closest.
technically, after the first Test match, I was the only one whose prediction was live. It was pretty much live.
Yeah.
It was very live till India were 145 for 6
Yeah,
on day 2,
yeah,
and then Rishabh Pant happened.
yeah, yeah,
But I think you can't take it away from India. It was a
yeah. I
fantastic
mean,
performance.
maybe let's start with the beginning of this test match, right? I think
Yeah,
England probably faltered with their team selection. Do you agree with
yeah,
that? Is that a fair
yeah,
statement? I mean, for
yeah,
them to not play three proper bowlers and Ben Stokes as your fourth bowler, a guy that
yeah,
hasn't bowled as much in the previous test matches, and
yeah,
you're expecting him to bowl 15, 20 overs in a day. I
yeah.
think that was asking too much of him.
Yeah,
Um,
I think they played the third test team in the fourth test and the fourth test team in the third test.
yeah, I mean, I guess yeah. The Ahmedabad wicket was never a three-seamer wicket, if you know
Yeah,
what I mean. They
yeah.
had to have three spinners. They didn't play best in the third Test match. They played him now. Big
But he
fat
didn't do
help.
anything. But he didn't
Yeah,
do.
big fat help. He was in this Test match.
Yeah. So I
um,
mean,
so
it's more the
yeah,
skill rather than the type of bowler, really, which
I
really.
agree. I agree. I mean, maybe they would have been better off, playing with a third seamer, anyways, instead of
Yeah.
Bess. He might have
Well,
done better.
but looking at how Anderson Stokes bowled, probably yes.
Yeah, yeah, probably yes. Go with your strengths is what we
Yeah.
always say. So maybe they faltered there. Won the toss.
Yeah.
Lucky there, they got an opportunity to bat first.
Yeah.
But clearly they didn't do enough.
Yeah.
Scoring 204 in the first innings, that just isn't good enough. No matter how good or bad the wicket is.
Yeah. I agree. I
And
mean,
and
you
this
can't.
was this wicket was significantly better than the previous game.
Yeah. I mean, well, at least on judging by how even how England batted, I mean, they got to 200 something.
Yeah,
And then obviously the way Pant and Washington Sundar batted, it showed that it wasn't impossible to bat on that pitch. You could spend some time there, and then you could score the runs. But I think the England batsmen, they were a bit too hurried.
yeah.
I think they tried to counter attack a bit in the on day one, and then they lost out there. And then
In
in the second
spite,
innings,
sorry, in spite of having batting till number 8
yeah,
or
and
number
then
9.
in the second innings, I think they just I think they thought it was over and they just wanted to go home.
It, the second innings doesn't really count much.
Yeah,
It was all about the first innings. That's where the game was won or lost, if you'd
yeah,
like.
I agree. I
Um,
agree.
and obviously, really nothing much you could say about Pant and Washington Sundar.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know. I mean, they've been absolutely fantastic across the series, especially in this Test match. Unlucky for Washington Sundar to miss out on 100.
yeah,
Um, he's he's really coming into his own as a number 7, right?
yeah,
So anywhere, even if India travel abroad and there's a wicket that's going to spin a little bit, you can easily play Sundar at number 7. Or
yeah,
then if you've got um, a wicket that's going to seam a little bit, you can replace him with Pandya. So
yeah.
I think he cemented himself as the all rounder,
Well,
as
this is the
as
question,
a
right? I
third
mean,
as a third all rounder, right? Because you've
yeah,
got Jadeja, you've got Pandya, and you've
Patel.
got now Sundar.
Well, Akshar Patel as well, right? So,
Yeah,
I mean,
fair
that's the
enough.
question. Okay, I think in India they have more options because they play two or three spinners, but when
Yeah,
they play abroad
yeah.
and they need a second backup spinner, who do they go with? I mean, do they
Mhm.
go with Akshar Patel? Do they go with Jadeja? Do they go with Sundar? Do they go with Pandya
Yeah,
as a
tough
fourth
choice.
seamer?
Yeah,
It's a tough choice, but I guess it's a good problem to have.
I agree. I agree. I mean, and if you look at England as well, in this test match, some positives, but not really. I mean,
Yeah,
you can't really say much with the team scoring like 300 runs or
yeah,
350 runs across two innings.
yeah.
I just think it's
Yeah, I
pretty
mean
poor.
Ben
And I
Stokes
did.
with
Sorry, go on. You were saying?
I was just saying Ben Stokes with both bat and ball probably,
Yeah,
but he
yeah.
just
Was
ran
this
out of
match? Yeah,
steam with the ball in the end,
yeah.
and you
Not
can't
not
blame
his
him.
fault. No,
Yeah,
not
you
his
can't blame
fault.
him.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think Ben Stokes and James Anderson bowled amazingly well.
yeah.
Again, can't say much about Anderson.
Yeah.
You could say he's the best seamer in the world at the moment. There's
Apart
no,
from being reverse swept by Rishabh Pant over first slip.
yeah. Oh, well, that was a special shot. What can you say, right? I don't think any bowler could have predicted that or could say that, okay, I'm going to get hit for a four or six
Yeah,
of that shot. So, outrageous execution by Rishabh Pant is all you can
yeah,
say.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think that maybe let's talk about the series as a whole and how it's
yeah,
gone for both India and England. I mean, just one point to make before we delve into the teams and how they've performed. I just think that the England media and some of the senior players from England who now work as commentators and pundits, I think they got it really wrong. Guys
yeah,
like Kevin Peterson, Michael Vaughan, I think there was a lot of chat about the wicket and about how if you win the toss, bat first, you win the test match. I
yeah,
mean, if you look at it over the four test matches, that hasn't been true.
yeah,
Maybe the first test match you could say yes, because the wicket was an absolute roar on the first 2 days, and then it turned on the third day onwards,
yeah,
and the advantage was to England because they won the toss and they scored 600.
yeah,
But after that, the toss was immaterial in my opinion. No matter if India would have batted first or batted second, India just had the superior skill on in
yeah.
these conditions,
I
and
agree.
that's why
I
they
agree.
won.
I
So I
agree.
think it's just the case of sour grapes. I think from guys like Warren and Peterson.
Yeah,
I think the same thing could happen in England, right? You could
yeah,
have test matches ending in 3 days, in 4 days, and people would be okay. No one would ever say, oh, the wicket was seaming too much, or there
yeah,
was too much swing, or the wicket was damp, it was overcast, it kept low. All those things happen in England. So
yeah,
not many people complain about that when other touring teams go to England.
yeah,
And another point on the pink ball test match, the day and night test
yeah,
match. Just look at the history of day and night test matches. Every single game has finished in 3 days. No matter if it's being held in Australia, in England, in India, in Sri Lanka, wherever they've had
yeah,
day and night test matches, ended in 3 days. This one, okay, agreed, it ended in a day lesser,
yeah,
but we've already discussed this. 21 wickets in that test match came off straight balls, so it was
yeah.
more about the batsman's skill as opposed to the wicket. I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, in our previous episode, we
do,
did
you,
kind
do,
of
you,
mention the
do you
pitch,
agree or
but
disagree? Yeah.
I think this the third test. I mean, yeah, you can. I think that it had something to do with the pitch. I mean, again, we went back to Joe Root and his 5 wickets, right? I mean, Joe Root
Yeah,
is not a world class bowler, so for him to take 5 wickets, there must have been something in the pitch, right?
yeah,
But was it like a day and a half or a day and 2 sessions pitch? Maybe not.
yeah,
Um, and at the end of the day, it does come down to skill. But I don't know. I mean, it's tough, right? Because at the end of the day, you look at the third test, you look at the fourth test. 1.5 day and 2.5 days. You've had two test matches for the price of one, basically. You know, is that really what you want to see in Test cricket? Probably not. But then you're in that fine balance between getting 500 versus 500 pitches, which we got probably 10-15 years ago.
yeah,
And I guess we're getting more results these days. So I guess that's good, but there needs to be some sort of balance.
yeah,
But then again, you back to that argument, which is like the first test, which went for a little longer, but you have the team batting first, pretty much winning the game because they smashed 500,
yeah,
and then the pitch deteriorates.
yeah.
So yeah, there needs to be some sort of a balance.
True.
I don't know, standardized pitches or something.
That's very difficult to
dropping
do. And then
wickets. Yeah,
there's no fun, right? Touring India, you want the wickets to turn.
yeah,
Playing in England, you want the wickets to seam. So I
yeah.
can't. I don't think you can have standardized pitches,
No,
but
I agree. But just as a pure cricket fan, like I don't like seeing
yeah,
2.5 day test matches or especially
yeah,
India England, or if it's like it happened with the previous test match when India won in 2 days was against Afghanistan, and
yeah,
that's fine. Afghanistan are a new test team, so you don't you don't expect anything different. But India England, you would have expected more of a fight. But again, you can probably blame England's batting as well. It's not
yeah.
just India, right?
I mean, to be fair, if you look at Australia, India, a lot of those
Yeah,
test matches, kind of went into like the fourth and fifth day,
yeah,
and there was more of a battle between bat and ball. But again, those are the wickets in Australia. These are the wickets in India. You get different wickets in New Zealand,
yeah,
South Africa, whatever. And in fact, if you look at Australia, New Zealand, that
yeah,
was played in Australia. New Zealand got hammered 3-0, and most of those games
yeah,
finished like in 3 days. So I guess there's a mix of the pitch, of
yeah,
the state of the pitch, and the
yeah.
quality of the players, right?
I agree. I
I
agree.
guess I guess this was England. It's unlikely. It's very difficult to find another team as good as India in these conditions, right?
Yeah,
So no matter the team, you would probably games would get over in the third day, anyways,
yeah,
just because the
true.
quality of India and the spinners and whatnot. So
Yeah.
I guess
If
that's
only
that's the
if
something.
only Pakistan could play on these pitches with
Yeah,
Yasir Shah, and that would
Yasir
be
Shah
such a
would
phenomenon.
would have been a handful, I think.
That would be a really good test match. But
Yeah,
anyways,
that's a different
uh,
conversation for another day.
but yeah, I guess moving on. There's no point in really doing player ratings as such because I mean there's quite a lot of different
Too
players,
many
especially used by
players.
England.
Yeah.
But I guess we can read 10 each for Ashwin and Patel, and then
Well, I was
um,
going to say 10 for Ashwin, Akshar Patel, Washington Sundar, Rishabh
Rishabh
Pant,
Pant.
Rohit Sharma, probably half of India's team. You
Yeah,
could probably say that, they're scoring 8 plus.
yeah,
I think the point to note again here is India's bench strength and how
yeah,
strong it is.
yeah,
You see Akshar Patel, he's played T20s and
yeah,
ODIs previously for India, and then after a
yeah,
couple of years, he's come back very, very strong into Test
yeah,
match cricket.
yeah,
Washington Sundar, he showed some good glimpses of his good batting in Australia.
yeah,
India have given him a chance, and he's really done well.
yeah,
Ashwin, we all know what's happening with him. Rishabh
yeah,
Pant, as I predicted, I think he's
yeah,
cracked Test match batting in Australia, and ever
yeah,
since then, the sky's the limit for a guy like him.
yeah. I guess the only questions are Gill and Pujara to a certain extent, especially for Gill. He did really
Yeah,
well in Australia. In his home test series, you would have expected him to do more,
fair enough.
and
Uh,
Pujara as
I
well.
I mean, yeah, Pujara, fair enough. Pujara, you could
Yeah,
excuse him. He had a phenomenal series against Australia, not in terms of
yeah,
runs, but in terms of impact.
yeah,
He's allowed to have a couple of bad series. So let's say that this
yeah,
was a bad series for him. He became Leach's bunny
yeah,
in this series. Gill, yeah, I think that's a tough one. I still think that Mayank Agarwal and Shubman Gill are kind of the incumbent openers, and it's anyone's guess who India might pick in the World Test Championship.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
That's
Although it's fair to say that Gill is really young, he's got a
yeah,
lot of time. He is going to become an all format player for India, and he's going to have a great career. Um, he maybe needs to get better at playing spin. I think he's a very good player of fast bowling,
yeah,
but needs to get better at playing spin. And Rohit Sharma, vice versa. He's an
yeah,
amazing player of spin, so he does really
yeah,
well in subcontinent conditions. But he probably needs to get better at playing pace, and
yeah,
maybe that's why Gill and Rohit Sharma make a good pairing.
yeah. Potentially, yeah. I
Potentially.
mean, that's it. As a combination, they seem to have worked well, which is all that matters. Although individually, Gill didn't have probably the best of series.
Yeah,
Um, we'll come on to the just Test Championship, but just before that, I think England. Joe Root had two, phenomenal performances. One with the bat, one with the ball.
yeah.
Apart from that, really didn't do much. So he's probably the only one who gets something more than a 5 or a 6 or
Yeah.
a 7.
I
Um,
would say even potentially Ben Stokes, just
yeah,
for his for his never say die attitude. Like he was probably dying on in the fourth Test match. I believe he
Yeah.
also had like he had a bad stomach, so he had an
Yeah.
upset stomach, and it was excruciating. It was really really hot, right?
Yeah.
It was unbelievably hot for someone like him, and to bowl how many ever overs as he did. So I think that was impressive.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the rest of them, Jack Leach probably gets a 5, 6, and then the rest.
Well,
Anderson for his effort. Anderson, yeah, for his effort. The
Jack,
rest are like 4 and below, I think.
I mean, just in terms of like potential, right? See good potential in someone like Dan Lawrence.
Yeah, 50s in Sri Lanka
Yeah,
and in India.
he looks like a really good player to spin.
Yeah.
So big positive there. I think Ben Folks is another one. Obviously, he's played a lot of balls. He bats
Yeah.
spin. He bats well against spin, but because he's batting at 7 and 8, he just he just doesn't have the game to
Yeah.
be able to score quickly at the end. So I think
Yeah.
if England want to play Ben Folks, he probably needs to bat like 5, 6.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Potentially.
and
I mean, yeah.
sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, well, maybe Josh Butler is the incumbent, right? So
Yeah,
with
yeah.
him back in, so you not sure if he'll
He
get a
comes
chance.
back. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
he comes back. I think Johnny Bairstow did no did
he's a
nothing for his
zero. He's a zero.
he did nothing for improving his reputation.
Yeah,
Um, and I think we need to talk about Moeen Ali, right? I mean,
yeah,
you have to trust my prediction. Had Moeen Ali played all 4 games in this series, he would have been the
yeah,
highest wicket taker. He would have had an amazing impact. England have just treated him very, very poorly, especially in the
yeah,
test matches. I've always maintained that he is a perfect player for England at number 8. He can
yeah,
bat at number 8 in test matches, and he's a good bowler. When he was dropped in 2019, in the preceding 12 months, he was the highest wicket taker in test cricket. I just
yeah,
don't understand. Okay, fine, you drop him for a game or two, and then you bring
yeah.
him back. But then I don't know what happened. He took a break. I just think
Yeah.
that that's very poor management by England.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but I guess it was pre-agreed and stuff, so you can't really
Yeah, I,
complain
yeah,
about that. They should have
I
played him if they needed him. They should have played him. Well, they didn't play him in the first test, which they
yeah,
ironically won. They
yeah,
didn't play him in Sri Lanka, which and they won both games there. So, but yeah, I think it would have been a handful on the Ahmedabad wickets. But
yeah.
you know, hindsight is a wonderful thing, especially after watching Dom Bess's performance.
I mean, look, I have always maintained, and I've said this before as well. Moeen Ali is the better bowler. I know people
Yeah,
have disagreed with me on that, but Moeen Ali is the better
yeah,
spinner when you compare him to
yeah,
Dom Bess, right?
yeah,
Not that Dom Bess is bad. Maybe in a couple of years, he's only 23. He'll get better. But yeah, I just think that England needed Moeen Ali in this series more
yeah.
more than they needed him in Sri Lanka. I think.
Agreed. Agree with that. Should we move on to the World Test Championship?
Yeah, that's
Long
going to
way
be
to go. We'll do a in-depth preview near the date, but
yeah.
I mean it's going to be in England, so depending on the weather, I think you have to say New Zealand on paper or in the given conditions are probably slight favorites.
Yeah. I guess conditions are similar
Uh,
to New Zealand.
yeah,
You
although Yasir Shah has taken 5 fours on day one at Lords, so you never know.
never know. But that's been against England, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, maybe New Zealand. New Zealand, I feel, are still a better team against spin than England and Australia. So you
yeah,
might not see that. It also depends on the weather conditions in the UK in June.
yeah,
Are we going to have a proper summer or not? Is the sun going to
yeah,
come out or not? Depends on that. But India's record at Lords hasn't been great.
yeah,
The last Test match that they won against England at Lords was in 2014. That's like 7 years back.
yeah,
I was there. I went to see that
yeah,
live. That was an amazing experience. But yeah, I think on paper you'd say that New Zealand are the stronger team in the UK. But never say never. With India's
yeah,
bench strength, like we've
yeah,
discussed, how do they fit 11
yeah,
players from a group of like 20 players who are like test match ready,
yeah.
who've performed amazingly well over the last 6 months. How do
Yeah,
you how do you pick? Uh,
I agree.
so it's going to be a tough decision for India on who to pick and who to let go. New Zealand have a pretty stable team.
Yeah, I think that the spinner is the only kind of weak link in their squad, especially compared to India.
Yeah,
And if it is, that's why if it is, wicket that helps spinners, then that's why India will have the edge,
yeah,
because that's a big advantage India have. Otherwise, I think, yeah, New Zealand are pretty much,
yeah,
set with their 11, obviously barring injuries or anything else.
yeah,
But it'll be a great contest. But I think, unfortunately, I think the toss and the conditions are going to be the key factor, because both teams are so different in terms of what their skill sets or the specialist sets
yeah,
are,
yeah,
that if it's gray clouds and a typical miserable English morning, then New Zealand might as well, they'll probably finish it in 3 days.
yeah,
Or if it's slightly drier or hotter here, then yeah, I think India have a fantastic chance. So
yeah. True.
it will be a mix of skills and conditions, unfortunately, not just skills.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it'll be a great spectacle. I think deservedly both teams make it to the final. I think India, um, on record, they should have made it anyway. But I think because of all the change in format and whatever calculations, I think there's a chance that they wouldn't make it. So I think it's fair that regardless of what system they've used now, that the top two teams have made it.
yeah.
I think that's fair.
Probably. Yeah, yeah. I would say, yeah, probably. I
Yeah,
mean, Australia had a good chance of making it, had they not given up their Test series
yeah,
against South Africa. So I think
yeah,
it would have probably been Australia and India.
yeah,
But New Zealand, New Zealand are in my opinion, New Zealand are one of the most luckiest teams over the last couple of years. Even the 2019 World Cup, yeah,
yeah,
they sneaked through into the semis, and obviously
yeah,
beyond then they had two fantastic games, and
yeah.
pulled a rabbit out of the hat, as you would like,
Well,
to know.
almost.
Well, almost, yeah. I mean, but I think they've just been fairly lucky. Um,
Yeah.
New Zealand, after they lost to Australia, they had
Mm.
like two or three very easy series at home against
Yeah.
Indies and who was it?
Pakistan.
West Indies and Pakistan. Yeah, so you could say that they had fairly easy home series and two Test matches, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Two Test matches each against these teams, and it
Yeah.
was very straightforward.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, the fat format needs to change. I mean,
Yeah,
those teams, yeah, you need to have these teams playing against each other, home and away.
yeah,
Because I think India played New Zealand away, but New Zealand
not
never
at
played in India, right?
yeah, not at all.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
yeah, I agree that you can probably have like a rotation system where you say, okay,
yeah,
fine, in this cycle, India will play New Zealand, Australia, and
yeah,
England.
yeah,
Or you've probably got to like rank it and say, okay, fine, India will play rank number two, rank number five, and rank number eight in this
yeah,
cycle home and away, and then the next cycle you change whatever.
yeah, yeah.
And maybe India and Pakistan don't play each other until other things are sorted, but that's
That's for another day.
fair
But
enough.
yeah, that's our episode.
Yeah.
We've had one person join and leave while we were talking. So,
No
but
problem. You can watch this episode at your own leisure as well,
yeah,
because it
why
will
not?
be part of our
Yeah,
library of videos.
of course, it will be. As always, please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let us know what you think about our video. Do you agree with us? Are we too harsh on the English pundits? Was it just a pitch? Was it the conditions?
So KP learned Hindi. Oh,
Yeah,
someone was helping him, right? For this, I think that they were expecting England to win this Test series,
yeah,
and that's why they became too cocky.
yeah,
But yeah, yeah, I
yeah.
don't think we're being harsh on them.
All right. Thank you for watching, everyone.
Thank you.